This video is for educational purposes only, not medical advice. Always consult your doctor before making any dietary or lifestyle changes. Never eat any wild plant unless you are completely certain of its identification, and avoid plants growing near roads, treated lawns, or areas sprayed with pesticides or herbicides. Every spring, Eleanor puts on her gardening gloves and pulls the same stubborn little plants out of her flower beds. She's done it for 30 years. She doesn't think twice about it. They're weeds. Weeds get pulled. Here's something Eleanor has never once considered. Several of the plants she's been yanking out of the ground and tossing in the yard waste bin were, for most of human history, exactly what people walked outside to gather for dinner. Not out of desperation, out of habit, the same way she reaches for lettuce at the grocery store today. By the end of this video, you'll know 10 of them, including one mentioned by name in the book of Job, growing in a shrub, described as food for people who had nothing else. If you're new here, subscribe to Ancestral Fix. Every week, we find what the ancient world knew and what your body still needs. Stay with me. Number 10. Dandelion. Every single part of a dandelion is edible. The leaves, the flower, even the root, which has been dried, roasted, and used as a coffee substitute for generations, especially during times when real coffee was scarce or too expensive. The leaves, especially young ones picked before the plant flowers, have a pleasantly bitter, slightly peppery bite similar to arugula, and they get noticeably more bitter as the season goes on, so early spring is the best time to try them. Toss them raw into a salad, or saute briefly with garlic and olive oil to soften that bitterness into something rounder and more mellow. The plant most people spend their summer spraying to kill was, not that long ago, sold in markets on purpose, right alongside lettuce and spinach. Number 9. Chickweed. Low, delicate, and often overlooked entirely, chickweed spreads across shaded garden beds and lawns with small, white star-shaped flowers. It has a mild, slightly grassy flavor, closer to spinach than anything bitter, which makes it one of the easiest wild greens to start with if the idea of eating something from your yard still feels strange. Add it raw to a sandwich or salad exactly the way you'd use sprouts. Number 8. Lamb's quarters. Closely related to spinach and quinoa, lamb's quarters grows tall with a distinctive dusty, silvery coating on its young leaves. It was eaten widely across Europe and North America for generations before it was recategorized as a garden nuisance. Cooked briefly, it wilts down just like spinach and can be used in nearly any recipe that calls for it. The taste is honestly difficult to tell apart. Number 7. Wood sorrel. Easy to identify by its clover-like heart-shaped leaves and small, yellow flowers. Wood sorrel has a bright, distinctly sour, lemony taste from naturally occurring oxalic acid, the same compound that gives spinach its slight tang. A small handful adds a fresh, citrusy note to a salad without needing an actual lemon. Because of that oxalic acid, it's best enjoyed in modest amounts rather than by the bowlful, especially for anyone with kidney stone concerns. Number 6. Red clover. Those familiar clusters of small pink-purple flowers dotting most lawns by early summer aren't just food for bees. The flowers themselves are edible, with a mild, faintly sweet, hay-like flavor, and have a long history in folk tradition as a tea. Steep a small handful of fresh or dried blossoms in hot water for a few minutes for a gentle, pleasant herbal tea, unlike anything from a grocery store box. Number 5. Stinging nettle. Yes, the same plant that stings on contact. And it is precisely that reputation that keeps most people from ever considering it as food. Here is the part almost nobody realizes. Cooking or drying nettle completely neutralizes the sting, breaking down the tiny, hollow hairs responsible for it. And what is left behind is a deeply flavorful green, similar to spinach but richer and more mineral tasting, that has been used in soups, teas, and traditional spring tonics across Europe for centuries. Always wear thick gloves when harvesting it raw, but once it has been blanched in boiling water for even 30 seconds or thoroughly dried, it is completely safe to handle and eat, sting and all forgotten. Number 4. Purslane. We've mentioned this one on the channel before, and it earns its place again here. Those small, fleshy, reddish-stemmed leaves spreading across driveway cracks and garden beds are documented in Greek medical writing and have been eaten across the Mediterranean, Middle East, and Mexico for centuries. It's slightly sour and refreshingly crisp, good raw in a salad or briefly sautéed, and it's one of the few leafy plants that naturally carries a modest amount of omega-3 fatty acids. Number 3. Wild amaranth, sometimes called pigweed. Related to the cultivated amaranth grown for grain, the wild version growing uninvited in gardens across the country has tender young leaves that cook down just like spinach, with a mild, slightly earthy flavor. The seeds, if you let a plant mature, can be harvested and cooked, much like the amaranth grains sold in stores. The exact same plant family the Aztec Empire once built an entire food system around. Number 2 is one you've probably stepped over on a walk without a second thought. Plantain, not the banana-like fruit, but the low, ribbed leaf plant that grows in nearly every lawn and along nearly every sidewalk crack in the country. Its young leaves are edible, slightly bitter and grassy, and can be added to salads or cooked down like other greens. Traditional folk use across many cultures included applying crushed leaves to minor skin irritations, though that's a topical folk tradition, not something this video is recommending as treatment for anything. Which brings us to number 1, and this is the one with the real, direct scripture behind it. Mallow. In the book of Job, chapter 30, Job describes people so destitute and desperate that they pluck mallow from among the bushes to eat, alongside the roots of broom trees, described as the food of the poorest of the poor, driven from decent society, foraged out of necessity rather than choice, scraping together whatever the wild land would give them. Mallow is a rare, still common plant, sometimes called common mallow, or cheeseweed for the round, cheesewheel shape of its seed pods, with a mild flavor and a slightly mucilaginous texture when cooked, similar to okra. Young leaves can be added to soups and stews, where that texture actually helps thicken the broth, the same practical quality that likely made it worth gathering in the first place, long before anyone thought to write its name into scripture as a symbol of hardship. That detail is worth sitting with for a moment. In the ancient world, mallow was food for people who had nothing else. Today, most of us have a version of it growing in our own yard, and we've never once considered eating it. Now, before you head outside and start grazing on your lawn, a serious word of caution belongs here. Correct identification matters enormously with wild plants, since several edible-looking weeds have toxic lookalikes. Never eat anything you can't identify with complete confidence, ideally cross-checked with a reliable foraging guide or a knowledgeable local expert. Avoid any plant growing near roads, in commercially treated lawns, or anywhere pesticides or herbicides might have been used. And introduce any new wild food in small amounts first, the same way you'd introduce any new food, to see how your body responds. This is really the same quiet theme running through so much of what we cover on this channel. It's not that any of this is magic, or that Eleanor's flower beds are secretly a pharmacy. It's that an enormous amount of what modern life quietly taught us to discard, spray, and pull up by the root was, for nearly all of human history, simply considered dinner. Let's come back to where we started. Eleanor, pulling the same stubborn plants out of the ground every spring, without a second thought, the way her mother taught her, and her mother before that. And underneath that habit, a food source old enough to be written into the book of Job. Still growing, still free, still exactly where it's always been. If there's one thing to take from today, let it be this. Sometimes the thing you've spent years trying to get rid of is the very thing your ancestors would have gone outside specifically to find. This video is for educational purposes only and is not medical advice. Always consult your doctor before making dietary changes. Never consume any wild plant without absolute certainty of its identification and safety. If this kind of ancestral wisdom speaks to you, consider subscribing, because next time we're looking at a weapon the Byzantine Empire used for 800 years that was so effective and so secret, the formula disappeared when the empire fell. We'd love to have you along.